has come out through the Daily Nation that the 100% transition might put a strain on teachers, and TSC is saying that it has hired 10,000 interns to mitigate that and is urging all teachers to do the best they can to ensure that they bring out quality or give quality education to the students. Suleiman, you are giving us your take on this, right? What do you think about the 100% transition and how it's putting a strain on the Teachers Service Commission, or rather the teachers on the ground?
General education is not a devolved function under the schedules of the Constitution. The mandate is on the national government to at all times put in place a proper infrastructure for the conducive learning of all learners. TSC is mandated to put in place an adequate number of teachers to at all times be at hand to teach these pupils.
Right.
Clearly, each and every year we are having more and more numbers in terms of the pupils who are transitioning from primary to secondary education. That is a very clear thing. But then again, we need to work on these statistics to put in place an equal number, a proportionate number of teachers that will be at all times at hand to take these learners through the secondary transition program. Then again, in terms of the strain that this will bring, is not just confined to the teaching part. We need infrastructural aspect to be also considered.
Right.
In terms of putting in place school laboratories, more classrooms, computer labs, and a number of things. This is what the government of the day also ought to focus on. In terms of the education per capita, that education grant, that per capita education grant for each and every child, the government has equally tried to improve each and every year, or each and every budget making year, to improve the same. The amount of capitation grant that has been allotted to each and every kid has considerably improved over the years.
Right.
This is a pointer to the fact that the government is quite serious in terms of investing in these pupils. But what normally happens that equally causes a lot of frustration is on the part whereby we have teachers and TSC who are at all times at loggerheads in terms of implementations of various CBA programs, CBA agreements. Teachers normally, after every short period of time, between 6 months to 1 year, exercise their rights under the Constitution to protest and to go on go-slow to no longer teach the pupils in the name of agitating for a pay rise. That is what the TSC should be highly considerate of, so that the learning process of these kids is not put in a limbo.
Yes, so that it is uninterrupted and, of course, not watered down by this policy. What's your take on this?
My take is similar to his in terms of approach.
Yes.
One, we have an aspect of recalibrating the entire system.
Yeah.
You need to understand that Kenya is a country among many nations in the world, and there are best models on implementation of education at that basic level that's being adopted in other nations. We have a concept of home learning.
Yes.
We need to encourage it.
Really?
We need to remodel it. We need to, restructure it within the framework of basic education.
Yes.
There's another aspect of CBA. Teachers keep on complaining. They are not paid. Every time we are opening schools, there are strikes. They are discouraging even students to venture into the private school. No wonder you see the kind of results that are coming out.
Yeah.
So these are some of the issues. We need to adopt so many models that are being operationalized in other parts of the world.
Right.
And we are happy that Magoha is one of the leading pillar in education, and he's implementing programs that are quite have not been used by his predecessors, and we can see the result. So we have confidence that 100% intake will
be happening,
will be operationalized
as long as it does not water down the whole system. Because remember, when free education came up, then there was also a similar issue.
It had a lot of teething problems.
Yes, that the schools were overcapacitated and they just couldn't handle it, and the teachers were they're overwhelmed. So I think I hope there has been adequate planning for this, because.
Just to add on that, I think one of the other things that the government should be considerate of is that out there, the government has communicated to Kenyans that we shall have free primary and secondary education. We still have parents who are still parting with an amount of fees at the secondary level in public schools. That is a dream that the government should, that's a promise that the government of the day should indeed fulfill. In the event that happens, it will alleviate a high burden on the shoulders of poor
Absolutely,
Kenyans.
yes, because the low results are not always the problem. Sometimes they just cannot afford it. Now, let's move on to another big story that broke yesterday, where we told that the United States has publicly shamed Wako. This is according to the Daily Nation and his family over corruption. We're told that the Busia Senator and former Attorney General has been banned from entering the United States following what they have termed as his engagement in corruption. It has not been clear when he did engage in said corruption. It could be as Senator or as Attorney General, but speculators feel it's during his time as the Attorney General, and they say this is a show of the United States' commitment to aiding Kenya in its fight against corruption. What's your take on this one, Mr. Wako?
I find that move, the American government has been too much into these issues of corruption. And also we must understand these issues that are facing Wako, they appear out of agro-listing issues that happened. He was listed many years ago. I even don't think he has been able to travel to the US from 2005.
This is not the first time we're hearing about this.
And there are several people who are also on the list, including some former ministers. But also we need to understand the fact that the US government has been extremely biased towards Africa. Corruption is not a local concern. Corruption is integrated within and without. Agro-listing was not even Kenyan-based company. It was based in the UK. So we have not had any Kenyan government indicting any of US government officials not to step in this country, or even UK. So there is no balance in this issue. It's just punishment of people.
But don't you think this, because the government has increasingly been collaborating with the foreign governments, isn't this just part of that trend?
No, these are usual fitinas of the US government. The US government itself has been indicted in absentia for even crimes against humanity in Syria, in Iraq, in everywhere. But you find even their Secretary of State coming in Kenya. So we need to be biased. It's power play. We have so many officials who are doing monkey business out there, but they still come to this country. They want to ban our officials. He's a senator. He's even respected. He's even BBI committee. BBI committee has even the endorsement of the U.S. government in peace and peacemaking. So I am not encouraging corruption. But also there need to be some element of genuinity and balance. Kenyan government also need to reciprocate that. Any move, a straight move to, like a country like Iran, what the US has done, you find Iran doing something. But here we are just free.
Realistically speaking, what can Kenya, not that I'm thinking poorly of my own country, but what can Kenya deny?
Then we are just being harassed.
Can we do sanctions? We cannot enact any meaningful sanctions against them, can we? Or can we ban them, and would that have any effect? Would anyone feel the effect of being told you cannot come to Kenya?
So it's that principle now. It's that principle of harassment that I'm talking about. Because we have no capacity, we are being harassed. We have issues. We have issues. We have systems that can even,
What would you have Kenya do effectively if they were trying to have that balance that you're calling for?
No, we are trading partners. Yes, we can
enforce the trade war.
And these are some of it's that aspect that we have reached capacity. So our officials are being harassed by the U.S. government. We don't support corruption. We can fight corruption here at home, but also we don't want the big man syndrome by the United States government to harass our officials. You find even them indicting even our leaders, including the president or deputy president or former prime minister. It is not right. We've seen those sanctions in Zimbabwe. You see where the country is. So that big man syndrome need to. I don't like it principally as a person, and I don't encourage it. If given an opportunity to be even in government, I'll condemn it as it is.
So in your opinion, there are better ways of dealing with
what's the problem with the Wako's son? What has son done?
And
what's the wife? What was the issue with the wife?
It is, as they put it, a public shame. What's your take on this, Suleiman?
I think it will be a bit unfair to sort of speculate on what significant corruption is.
Exactly.
For now, that is the information that we have in terms of the sort of reference that the U.S. government has given us.
Especially without knowing when.
Yes. And then again, he is the person, Wako, his wife, and his son are the ones who have been banned from
the United States.
From the US.
Yeah.
Under the law, they have the right to first come to terms with the reasons for this specific decision on the part of the US government.
Right.
But the reality is, we are a country that has enough institutions. Then again, those institutions are not performing. We have very many corrupt officers who are roaming the streets.
True.
Wako, save for the fact that it is the US government that has brought this to the attention of Kenyans over this specific significant corruption, as it claims, as Kenyans will never maybe have known this. The US has looked at us. It has realized that this is a country that is not serious in the fight against corruption. This is an effort on the part of the states to help us fight corruption.
Okay.
Look, the US government has invested in this country so much. In terms of funding the civil society organizations, it is the biggest funder.
True.
In terms of the head of state visiting the US and having sort of bilateral agreements, the US government is a superpower that we cannot wish away.
Yes.
The decision on the influence the US government has in the United Nations is immense. The US government, the nationals of the United States government who troop to our country in the name of tourism is also quite high. This is a good move on the part of the states, and it should equally follow suit in banning all the other officials from accessing its country. Look, what it did is that it has shamed such an official, such a high-ranking political leader of this country. It should equally give us records of all the others who have engaged in corruption, in the sense that as a country we have failed in the fight against corruption.
But my question would be...
Before I want to clear on an issue. We've been in this country before and we know what are some of these issues. We were here in this country when Randburger indicted Wako and other officials. Look, some I don't want to mention here on TV for issues that were mentioned then.
Yeah.
I want to give an example. I come from Murang'a. There's an FDI, there's an American FDI called Del Monte International. It has been indicted by the National Land Commission for illegally allocating itself land in Murang'a. This is an American system. They are here, and nothing is being done on them. But the American government has audacity to harass our people. But Kenyan government is not reciprocating it. NLC, an independent constitution commission, indicting an American foreign direct investment for grabbing land in Murang'a. That's very serious. And the Kenyan government is not doing anything. We have not had any communication from the Kenyan AG on that aspect, because they fear the ramifications of trade, support on war on terror, and those languages that they use in those diplomatic corridors. So we need to balance. Secondly, my brother, Suleiman, you need to understand that the American government has been indicted severally by so many countries, including Iran, Malaysia, so many countries, for perpetrating crimes against humanity. And there's nothing, nobody, they are not touched by anybody. So it is that big man syndrome that I have a problem with, not the principles of corruption. It is that specific item of harassment by a country that purport to be big superpower to harass our officials. I've said corruption is integrated, local, within and without.
Yes, it is it's not exclusive to Kenya.
It is not exclusive to this country.
They do insist that this is a collaboration. They're trying to show that they are serious about helping us deal with corruption. My question is the efficacy. How would this aid? Because what we're supposed to be, in my view, going for is prosecutions, getting the evidence. If they have this evidence, giving it to us and us working towards prosecuting whoever is involved in corruption, to bringing them to book to the very end of corruption, towards even asset recovery. And I'm always talking about asset recovery because at the end of the time, naming and shaming is the same thing we do. Don't we just name them and shame them and the papers cover it? But at the end of the day, you hear the cases going on and then they fizzle out. So of what use would this be realistically to us anyway?
I think that's right. You as you rightly put it, the right strategy is what we need are convictions and asset recovery. Those are the two mechanisms that we need to have. And those two mechanisms, we can easily win them in the courts of law, that is before the Anti-Corruption Court, and the Asset Recovery Agency, hand in hand with the EACC. But then again, what we are saying basically is we have had a government that has majorly acted whenever such a story is brought forth.
Okay.
It is only when the media casts light on specific instances of corruption that the government of the day has majorly acted.
Yes.
It is not in question that it is a prosecutorial aspect of having such cases to be finished before the courts of law that is the right ideal. That is the ideal avenue. Shaming such an officer such a high-ranking political leader is important to Kenyans in the sense that this is a government that has holistically failed in the fight against corruption. Right now, we are desperate for all strategies that can help us fight this menace.
Yes.
This big animal called corruption, one of the ways of equally fighting it is shaming. Once we shame, you will realize that the DPP will end up investigating this hand in hand with the DCI will end up investigating this matter, and we might end up having a certain level of prosecution taking place against Wako.
Yes.
Then again, let us not forget the fact that right now, what is described by the US government as corruption is simply referred to as significant corruption. Let us wait for the US government to furnish us with evidences of corruption against him, and that is the set of evidence that probably the office of the DPP will rely on to prosecute to conduct prosecution against Wako and his family.
And his family, not unless he does have businesses, and therefore this would, in the United States, and therefore this would be a significant pinch to him in terms of him not being able to, And
even in the event that happens, the law provides for a mechanism whereby the two governments can work hand in hand to still to have the government of the day take back the various assets that he might have invested in that other country.
Absolutely.
So at the end of the day, we shall fall back to the law in having either acquit him or prosecute him over corruption claims.
Absolutely. Now, let's take a look at a story that has been making headlines since yesterday. I'm sure you're both familiar with it, and this is the bizarre killing of a woman and her children by a husband who is said to have been a part of, who is now sacked, but he was a major in the KDF. And on the top page of the Star, we're told, sacked KDF major held for 21 days over family matters. Now, this individual has been said to have exhibited symptoms of not being mentally okay. If you read some of the details that come out, you say even his colleagues did see some of the elements that could show that he was not doing well. But up until the moment that he did take the life, allegedly, of his wife and the kids, then he has been seen as somebody who we should have kept a closer eye on. And to me, it brings out the element of mental health in our society, particularly when it comes to people who are part of the KDF but have been out there. They have seen things, might be undergoing certain problems, but we are not putting enough attention to them until, as it clearly is in this case, too late. What's your take on this, Mr. Mwangi?
My take on this issue is general. This is a military system.
It is.
And the challenge is the post-traumatic management of officers, especially who have been in war situations.
Yeah.
We need to invest in our military in that aspect of post-traumatic stress management. It's happening world over. It's happening with veterans. We have no veteran programs in this country. When an army officer retires, goes home with zero care. This is someone who is being taken back to the society, who has been in war-torn areas, who have literally in his service butchered people, killed people en masse. So this is someone who is different. So we need to develop programs, including and not limited to improving our Armed Forces Act, to bring in place the aspect of post-trauma. Mental health in military and armed forces is a very serious item, but our government has not been doing enough in that area. You find people who have been in Somali, in our villages, they give stories. People get scared. There's someone in a second can commit. It could go off and commit worse crimes. Also, period of which these people are supposed to be released back to society need also to be factored in. And also management of families, in the barracks.
To understand.
We need to also, tried to isolate some of these family members from them during that time. Also, those families who are in the barracks and their families are maybe in the war, both female and male.
Yeah.
They're in the war area. We also need to manage. So that aspect of management of the trauma is extremely important and extremely urgent, and we need to help them. We need to help them.
Yeah, when you look at page 20 of the Standard, he's pictured there, Peter Mugure, and apparently one who is seen as a collaborator in that apparent crime. And he's in the dock right there, and we know that you're innocent until proven guilty as per the law. But then, is it even right that he's here? Should he be taken through some evaluations? Because some of the kids, as it has been rightly put on the Star, it is bizarre. So when you listen to some of the elements that he has pointed out, is he right that he goes through the system in a normal way? I don't know how the law interprets this sort of
He's not even supposed to be at the police station.
Yeah, is he mentally fit to go through trial? How? Explain to us. You're in the law.
What will happen is, under the Constitution of Kenya, Article 24 basically says, all the rights and fundamental freedoms of Kenyans shall at all times not be limited except by law.
Okay.
And the only instances within which we can limit those rights ought to be reasonable and justifiable within an open and democratic society.
Okay.
Looking at his case through that lens, Articles 48, 49, and 50 come to his aid.
Yeah.
At all times, very well, just to put it on record, nothing can justify such a gruesome manner.
Yes.
That's for a fact, it's clear. But then again, this is a Kenyan who equally comes under this constitution.
Yes.
He ought to be subjected to the processes under the constitution. So what will happen is that he has been arraigned in court the other day.
Right.
He did not take plea. A trial ordinarily commences when one either pleads guilty or not guilty. In this instance, the prosecution had requested, hand in hand with the investigative authorities, for 21 days to conduct investigations.
Okay.
The rationale behind this and the granting behind this request by the chief magistrate is the fact that on the prima facie, the prosecution has demonstrated to the court that it needs more and more days to perhaps conduct DNA analysis to nab more and more suspects, such that after 21 days, when he'll be arraigned in court to take his plea, it has a watertight case.
Okay.
And mind you, the fact remains that when he will be arraigned in court, the defense counsel will have a right to be furnished with all the documents the prosecution will intend to rely on in this matter. Meaning, when he'll be arraigned in court to take plea, for instance, the defense counsel ought to be furnished with all the documentations that will be relied on by the prosecution in this case.
Okay.
When he'll be arraigned in court, again, the prosecution might request for more time, for an extension, or for more time to investigate this matter. In the event it might not have properly investigated or completed investigations. In the event he even pleads guilty, he will not immediately be convicted. What will happen is he will be subjected to a mental assessment. At times, we have Kenyans who have, in various scenarios, pleaded guilty to later on plead that they were not in the rightful mind. To rule out that case, the magistrate will order that this specific accused person be subjected to a mental assessment. It is after the mental assessment that he'll be brought back to court. And again, one of the other things that will again be given, an opportunity that will be given, is to mitigate, to tell the court that he feels, in the event this comes to a finality, to mitigate to the court, to explain to the court that he feels bad about what he did, that he feels to maybe impact this country in a positive way before he is finally convicted of specific criminal instances. In the event he pleads not guilty, a trial process will commence and the due process of the law will be followed. Then just to add on this, we have had, I had a look at the media, what was happening. The defense counsel had been denied access to meet his specific client, that's the accused person. At all times, let us not be overcome by emotions, but let us stick to the provisions of the law. In the event we do not do that, we might have an instance whereby an innocent person might end up being convicted of a crime.
All right, let's take a short